Do an intro.
Um,
Say
What?
hello and everything.
Um,
What? Say
Hi.
hello and everything.
Oh, hi.
Hello. Welcome to Lady Lane. What will we be discussing today, Stacy?
I think we're going to be discussing something called detachment syndrome. You're going to tell me all
Right.
about this and how it, yeah, middle age, menopause, and our feelings of yeah, detachment
Detachment.
and yeah.
Right. So in the beginning of the week when we had our meeting, we started talking about how especially it was me actually that started talking about it, about how I felt very detached from the people that I am around. Just recently moved to Florida and, my family lives in New York and how not, I wouldn't say that I have not missed anybody or anything like that by any means. I do miss them and everything. It's just, I feel detached from everybody. And it's been happening for quite some time, way before we moved to Florida. And we got to talking about how menopause affects your brain. The chemicals or the the hormones that regulate your brain activity come from, you have these three hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And estrogen really is one of those key hormones that regulates brain activity.
Hmm.
When your estrogen starts to deplete, you start to have these misfires in your brain. The most common one is with the hypermalleus, which is what controls your temperature. So a lot of perimenopausal, postmenopausal women, individuals will say that that is one of the main symptoms of perimenopause and postmenopause are hot flashes.
Hmm.
Because what happens is the estrogen, which if you think of estrogen as the key and the hypermalleus as the lock, the key is trying to find the lock that it fits into
Hmm.
and it misses or it doesn't have enough to fill or so and then you'll get a hot flash because the hypermalleus then misfires. It misinterprets what is happening. It doesn't have the estrogen to, for a lack of better term or, visual, plump it up, so that it's working correctly.
Hmm.
And you have a hot flash. So your body, the hypermalleus, thinks that it's hot. So it heats your body up to cool it down. So that's just one example of how estrogen affects your brain. So when we were talking the other day, I was saying that I had been feeling very detached from um, my children, even speaking to other people. I live in a new community now, and I don't feel the need to meet anybody or to make any friends. And I think what sparked the conversation was my husband being away because he has to go up to New York once a month to work. And so I'm by myself for a week and I'm fine with it. Like I could go all day without talking to somebody, without, interacting with anybody. And I'm okay with that. I don't feel lonely. I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't even sometimes have the TV on or the radio on I'm not reading a book. I'm just kind of sitting and just being.
Hmm.
And so, of course, in the lifestyle that we live in, just being is not acceptable. It's not something that's an acceptable exercise to be doing, right? You
Yeah.
always need to be doing something to be productive. And I have found that I need to be able to do that. I need to be able to just sit and just stare into space and for there to be silence. Like I can't in the car, even when I'm driving, I've noticed for maybe a year now that I don't even have the radio on.
Mm,
Like it's silent in the car. Just recently I've been putting on a book, but nothing else. And so it started to worry me a tiny bit because I don't know, I felt, oh God, something must really be wrong with me because I don't feel like I'm attached to anything anymore.
right.
Like I been married for 29 years and he's away for a week and I'm like, all right, well, I miss him. I do miss him, but the kids, I haven't seen my one son since August. I've talked to him, you know, but I haven't seen him since August. And my other one was here in September. And when he left, I was like, bye-bye. See you at Thanksgiving. So I don't know, so of course I was feeling as though that mommy guilt and
Hmm. Hmm.
the woman guilt that you have for, sitting there or not wanting to be stressed out constantly. Like your children stress you out.
Yeah.
Like we have to, we have to be honest with ourselves, right? Which
Yeah.
I don't think we are. Is that
Okay.
children stress you out?
Yeah.
And sometimes it is easier to be like, I can't. Like, not today. Like, every time you talk to me, you stress me out. You never just talk to me. We're not friends. Like,
Right.
you, we have not gone over that fence yet where we're equal. We're still child and parent,
Hmm.
where I only hear from them if there's an issue. So I have one who quite a bit of things are issues. So I do talk to him quite a bit. And I have another one who likes to do everything by himself and does not require a lot of guidance. So I don't ever hear from him because it never occurs to him that I'm on the planet, So, it's just kind of all right. I don't. So anyway, so when we were talking about that, of course, I thought I was the only one who felt this way. But then you also
Yeah.
were, this is very normal. So we need to do a show on this and talk about it because it's everybody online is always like, oh, my kids are doing this and I saw them here and look how happy we are. And I was like, they can't be everybody's house except for mine. I'm like, I raised my children in a very loving, stable, my husband and I have a very stable relationship.
Yeah.
The kids did everything they needed to do. They went to excellent schools. They both went to college. They both are living on their own independently. They're functioning members of society.
Yeah.
I did a good job raising,
Hmm.
but I still feel as though something is wrong because I don't feel as though we are attached anymore.
Right.
And that I didn't realize that this was something that menopausal individuals
Hmm.
go through.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Well, when you were saying
So go
what
ahead.
you when we were talking about your sons the other day, yeah, I was like, and I was like, I said, I think I actually even said this when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, tick, 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 tick. Yeah, me too, me too, me too. With my son who's in the States, my daughter's with me here in Switzerland, but yeah, it's just like you said, like, I text my son every day, how's it going, da da da. And sometimes he responds, sometimes he doesn't. And then this last week I had to be put out like an APB with his girlfriend, his sister, and I was like, the group chat, I was like, if anybody knows that he's still alive, please let me know, But then there are times where when we do talk, we FaceTime, at least once a week. And and maybe it's just because he's a senior in high school, so there's not really much to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm his mom. So in my
Right.
life, there isn't much that happens, it's the day-to-day routine. So, Sometimes you're just kind of like, you don't have much to say, right? And you're like, all right, see you later, bye. Other times he's really chatty and I'm like, I can't do this. Like I'm just like, okay. Oh, like, and again, that's like you said, you have this mommy guilt where you're just like, I should hang on his every word and participate and ask questions. And there are times where I'm just kind of like, I'm not there,
I don't have,
you know?
right,
And
right,
then of course, then there is those times where he and I meet at on the same level and and we talk for like 2 hours, you know, and that's
right, right.
great, so, and it's probably an ebb and flow kind of thing, but I think, like you said, we're going through this change of lifestyle, and you've kind of been in this like empty nest way longer than I am because your kids are older than mine. Um,
Yeah, you
but I
have
don't
one that
know,
lives with
like,
you. Where
I
you're
guess you're
empty nest.
still kind of they're kind of like still connected to the nest. I mean, is that how it always is at this point? So, is the detachment kind of like a result from trying to adjust to this newness that we're just like, you know what I mean?
Well, in the research that I've been doing on this, because I am by no means an expert on it, I just am doing research because it's happening to me. So when
Mhm.
I have a client that has an issue that I'm not familiar with, really what I say to them is, I don't experience this symptom, but I will do all the research that I can to help you figure it out, right?
Right.
So when this is coming up, I'm like, okay, great. I can kill two birds with one stone here. I will learn it for myself and then I will talk about it
Hmm.
because that is also a something that is really hindering this transition is that nobody talks about it, right? So as much as the celebrities are getting involved and the politicians are getting involved and the medical community is getting involved,
Hmm.
we are still not talking about it. There's still this huge stigma, if you want to say, on talking about the symptoms, the brain symptoms that could happen with this transition. Because again, like me, you think you're the only one that's going through it. You think you're the only one that can't connect with their children because of social media. When you go on social media, nobody's going to put on social media their kids sitting on the couch and them watching TV and everybody looking down at their phone and being like, hey, look how happy we are, right? But
True. It's true.
99.9% of the households, that is exactly what is happening,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Not just in your house, but because we don't talk about it, we then become maybe ashamed of the behavior that we think we are so out of that normal circle that we
Right.
don't want to talk to anyone about it because we don't want somebody to go, God, really? You really don't want to talk to your kids? Like, you really, I don't understand.
Yeah.
My children are my entire world. But when you have a conversation like this and the person goes, oh my God, yes, like I feel
Right.
terrible. They have exhausted me. It has been 28 years. I am exhausted.
Yeah.
And every day, Mom, this is what's going wrong. Mom, I need this. I need you to fix this. Mom, how do I do this?
Right.
There's a very interesting study where they're finding out that um, individuals who have given birth hold on to a piece of the DNA in their brains of the child. So that person is connected genetically now to that individual. So it's not like you give birth to this child and then you are detached from them. That you a part of them stays with you forever. It's an
Right.
interesting study. I'll have to look it up and see where it is, but I have come across it quite a few times now.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I found that to be very interesting because with my husband, who I don't think has ever felt a day of guilt in his life over anything that has gone on with the kids. Like, I couldn't go to work because just the thought of leaving them when they were little for a little while just made me nauseous.
Hmm.
He went right back to work, like, that Monday
Yeah.
without a care in the world. Like, okay, you're home with the kids. You're fine. The kids are fine. I'm going to go to work because that was in our family, that was how the family was set up at the time.
Right.
When the kids were little, I stayed home with them and he went to work. I then, of course, got a job as well, started a company, but my job was always around the kids. So
Right.
his job was his job. It was 8 to 5, whatever it was. He worked all day long. That's what he did. When I went to work, it was, how do I do this with the kids? How do I get them to school? What do I do when they're sick? All of that had to be considered before I got a job.
Right.
So basically, I created my own job and I worked for myself so that I was my own boss, so that I didn't have that stress.
Hmm.
So yeah, now I totally forgot where I was going with this point. Menopause brain, see? It happens to all of us.
The
What the
mommy
hell was I saying?
guilt of
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
of just the constantly being a mom.
Right. And then you get to the point where you're an empty nester. So, first off, nobody prepares you for the empty nest syndrome. An empty nest syndrome is it is like a spectrum. So, and you can fly over that spectrum and back all day long. Like, it's not like, okay, here you are on the empty nest syndrome. Like,
Mm.
I can go for days and it be very low. Like, I'm fine, my kids are grown, they're adults, they're men. How many grown men are constantly talking to their mothers? Not one that you're going to want to be married to, right? Like, think about it. But then you're the mother of that boy, and you're like, well, I want to talk to you every day. But his wife does not want you talking to him every day. You're a pain in the ass in her eyes. There can only be one head woman. So,
Mm.
like, it's either going to be the wife or the mother.
Right.
And if you're married, don't have it be your mother, right?
Right.
So you have to take that into consideration. The big joke in our house was we should have kept trying to have a girl so that I would at least have someone to talk to, because I live with three men. So
Right.
I mean, I have now conformed to the three men. So they don't talk, so I don't talk. And so that's what I was thinking was happening. I was like, well, I'm like, if they're not talking and they're content with
Right.
just kind of being, then maybe that's the way. Maybe I don't need to, turn myself inside out, or maybe I don't have to be talking all day long, or, so
Right.
you kind of just fall into that too when you don't have another female in the home with you. And
Hmm.
I'm sure the same thing happens to men who only have daughters. Like, there's something about that as well, although I'm not a man, so I can't
Yeah.
speak to it. But I'm
Well,
sure there's something that goes
yeah, I
on like
mean,
that.
it's me and Sarah here with Ken, and and Sarah and I will, squirrel off or whatever and have a little chit chat, and we'll crack up or have, be laughing, laughing, laughing or whatever. And Ken's just kind of like, what's going on? We're like, oh, nothing, you know, and it's not a purposeful exclusion. It's just, that mom kid kind of thing,
Right.
and so yeah, I'm sure I'm sure it does, yeah, there's that yeah, that dynamic of, well, mother relationship, but also the women, girls versus, all boys. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, maybe it's just the fact that I live with men and
Mhm.
that I have, taken on their personalities.
Right.
Because I have a very big personality, and my children do not. I know, right? And my husband does not. So my husband is the complete opposite of me.
Hmm.
So for as over the top as I am, he is totally under, like
Right.
6 feet under sometimes, like totally under. And we have two children who are very much like him. Although when they are like with their friends or whatever, they're very outgoing too.
Hmm.
They're just,
Yeah.
whatever. They are who they are. But so I was feeling very, I guess, guilty about about being okay or not really wanting to reach out to anybody,
Mm.
not just the kid,
Right.
because I do reach out to the kid. I make sure that I do, whether it's uncomfortable or not, I still do it. And we are doing a Zoom meet twice a week. So I meet with my kids and my husband and I, so the four of us will have a Zoom call on Wednesdays. And then on Sundays, we have a Zoom call with my sister and her kids and my mom.
That's
Because
great.
we used to do Sunday dinners, but my sister doesn't live in the area anymore. I don't live in the area. My mother, is with her new boyfriend, and the kids are all scattered.
Right.
My nephew lives in California, my kids live in New York. So it's spread out. But, so I am trying to make sure everybody stays together. But what I was saying was this detachment syndrome is very much related to the menopause and how your brain is rewiring itself
Mhm.
to accommodate the lower amounts of the sex hormones.
Huh.
So as the rest of your body is reorganizing, so is your brain,
Hmm.
and everybody forgets that your brain is really, the main character in all of this, right? Nothing
Right.
happens without your brain. So
Right.
your brain is really what is affected, and your brain is where the symptoms are coming from.
Mm.
Any symptom that you have during perimenopause or postmenopause is coming from your brain, right? So say like, well, we already did the example with the hot flashes, but think about the women or the individuals who are suffering with like dementia symptoms, and they're not dementia. Wait a minute, I don't want to say that. I need a good example of what's a good one with the brain. I'll think of something. But anyway, so let's get back to this. So, it's also called emotional blunting. So when when somebody who's going through menopause, the perimenopause transition, they can feel a sense of detachment, and they can also, it's also called emotional blunting, and they could feel like isolation, emotional numbness, difficulty connecting with yourself, and with other people. So it really is a real um, symptom that,
Right.
no one talks about it because it's not as, I guess it's not as like designer as hot flashes. Like
Mm.
everybody's got hot flashes. Everybody talks about the hot flashes. Everybody on TV is talking about them. They're funny when you have one and you're in a big meeting or whatever,
Yeah.
and you start sweating and everybody kind of laughs and you're like, haha, very funny. We move on.
Right.
But they're normalized.
Right.
And I don't really like the word normalized either, but they are. They're normalized where if you have one, everyone knows what's happening,
Yeah.
right? So if you are in a meeting and you have a hot flash and you're like, oh, I'm just having a hot flash, everybody's going to go, oh, okay. Like I have never come across somebody who's like, oh, what? Oh my God, get away. I've never come across that. Everyone, men and women, because women obviously will know exactly what it is. And men, they know what it is because they either have a wife or a mother or a sister or somebody who has, they're not living with their heads up their asses. They know what a hot flash is, right? But when you have symptoms that people don't talk about or symptoms that you don't believe are the norm
Right.
symptoms, they get kind of pushed under the rug. But this really is a symptom of the transition because your brain is trying to rewire itself to work with less estrogen and progesterone, and progesterone is that like calming hormone, and estrogen is what feeds the brain. And so it just so I did let's see. So I did a little bit more research on the emotional blunting. So emotional blunting is a psychological condition which I had never heard of before. Have you heard of
Mm-mm,
emotional blunting?
mm-mm,
So it's a psychological condition that a person could experience like a noticeable reduction in emotional responses. So I don't know if this is exactly what I would be what I would categorize myself as because I believe I have the correct emotional responses to situations. I do tend to kind of not want to get involved. But if I do get involved in something that's emotional, I do have the proper emotional response to it.
right. Yeah.
So one thing would be like a detachment or a numbness to the emotions. So you wouldn't
Mm,
be feeling emotion. And that they're also disconnected from their own emotions. So then that leads to a reduced ability to experience any emotion, joy, sadness, anger,
mm,
empathy. And this can make it very difficult to connect with others. So it seems like these two, the detachment syndrome and emotional blunting are kind of meshed together, but they're different.
yeah.
Like with the detachment, you still feel the feelings.
Hmm.
You're just detached from them,
Right.
right? Like you don't, not going to go out and it's hard to explain, but like with my children, like because I know that every time I speak to them, it's going to be, I need help with this, or this is
Mm,
not working, or whatever it is. I tend to, if I am not feeling it, I tend to skirt around it.
mm,
Like I won't ask them how they're doing. You know, I'll say something else to them like, we're doing this, this, and this. And if you guys want to, like, I'll just not say, how are you doing? Because I
right.
don't have the
The
capacity at the
capacity.
moment to deal with whatever you say you're about, what you're doing.
Right.
And then with the emotional blunting, is that there is no emotion. So even if somebody said something to you that was very like sad, like my girlfriend's mother just passed away at the beginning of the week, right? And I had the proper emotion to that, and I'm overly emotional. So I know definitely I'm not blunting it because I go over the top. I actually go like too far. And
Right.
that's an issue I have with my clients sometimes too, is that they'll be talking to me about something that is very, very upsetting. And I have to be like, you don't put anything of your own into it. So you're like
Right.
trying not to, but it's very difficult because if you're an empathetic person, you're drawn to this type of work to
Right.
help the people. But then it's a double-edged sword because you're very empathetic. You're going to be empathetic to them as they're telling you something. It's very hard to be very neutral about it,
Right.
So we want to be clear about the emotional blunting and the detachment syndrome, that they are not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They are they're different.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so with the emotional blunting, there could be reasons for it. So if you are having an issue where you're not displaying the correct emotion or feeling the correct emotion or the lack of emotion. So if something happens and typically you would be very happy about it. Like someone's getting married or someone's having a baby, and you are very like, I don't really care, or this is not giving me any kind of stimulation at all. Like that's emotional blunting, but there could be a reason for it. So you really want to talk to a doctor to figure out where it's coming from.
Right.
So it could be like a medicine side effect. So there's lots of different types of medication that can cause this. So you
Mm,
want to look at what you're taking. Um, an antidepressant could be doing this to you because that's what its job is
right.
to kind of regulate your emotions, but it could slip you into this blunting. Um, SSRIs, which are the antidepressants. That's what they do. Um, Mental health disorders can cause it. So if you are depressed or you're suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, and you don't know that you're suffering from those,
Mm,
or you do know that you're suffering from them and realize that this is starting to happen to protect yourself, you want to talk to the doctor about it so that, you don't want to, obviously, if you have gone through trauma, you're going to want to numb that trauma. Anybody would. You're human. You
yeah.
don't want to live in a trauma state. But
Mm,
you also want, as you suppress that and work through that, you don't want to suppress everything else. You still want to be able to feel joy and happiness and love and all of that. So
mhm,
you want to get yourself to the doctor if you know that you suffer from those disorders. You don't want to add another one to it.
mhm.
The big one is hormonal changes. So menopause, pregnancy, puberty, these all affect your neurotransmitters in your brain and they regulate your mood and and they can lead to the feeling of detachment and emotional blunting. So you want to really everybody knows a teenage girl who's going through puberty is just, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Right.
And we give her all kinds of support and all kinds of guidance and emotional, support and everybody knows what's going on and everyone's kind. But
Yeah.
then when you get to menopause, who cares, right?
Mm,
Get over it. Stop
right.
acting like a crazy person. Figure it out. Do it
Right.
quietly.
Yeah.
Like we don't need to hear about all of this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the conversations that we all need to have is why? Why is it that when a young woman or a young person is going through puberty, we have all the patience for that and the guidance and support. And when an individual is pregnant, we do the same thing. She goes to the doctor, gets the welcome packet. This is all that's going to happen. You get your calendar, you get all these cute little samples of things, all the support you could possibly imagine. If at any time you're not feeling well, you just call the office and somebody is on call for you 24 hours a day. And then you get to perimenopause and you go to that doctor's appointment. First of all, they tell you you're not in
Yeah.
perimenopause. They tell you your symptoms are not caused by perimenopause. They tell you that don't worry about it. It's 7 to 10 years and you'll be fine and you'll go back to being you. No, you will not. These symptoms can last for a very long time. And when you get to menopause day, doesn't mean it all stops.
Right.
All it means is that you're not getting period again and most likely you cannot get pregnant anymore. But other than that, nothing else changes. Your body will eventually, level out with the lower amount of estrogen, and then that's your new normal. Your brain has rewired itself to be able to handle that, just like it rewired itself during pregnancy and puberty. And now it's rewiring itself again. So we need to have these conversations so that people are comfortable enough to say, hey, this is what's going on.
Mm,
And I know I'm not the only person that it's happening to. So I think in this podcast that is the goal, not
mm,
really the goal of fixing it or just letting people know that it exists
right.
and that it's okay to talk about it because it's not going to get better without talking about it.
Right. Well, and having these conversations, I mean, like you need to have the community that, wants to open up about that. And you and I have, our just our friendly conversations that lead to these topics. And
Right.
so with the thing that you just said about how your brain is rewiring during those specific time or those phases, puberty and pregnancy, and now, this menopause phase, um, it makes me look at how my mom has been. And I talked to you about this, the other day where it was like, I wonder if this sense of disinterest is that, it is this phase where, our brain is getting reorganized to cope with our, the physiology changes that we're going through. And then, and I never really saw my mom um very social, right? But then when she hit her 60s, she had this new group of friends and they went traveling all over the place and they meet for lunch and they do all these things together. They look out for each other. They're there to, if one's sick, they bring soup or the flowers or whatever, And so I wonder if that's not like this other kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel where we kind of do level out and then it's kind of like everybody kind of being in the same boat again, you know? Does that make sense? Like where,
Yeah.
we're all kind of
Yeah.
like on these journeys and we all kind of like splinter off and kind of like, okay, I gotta like regroup my everything, And then
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
I'm put together or, readapted to myself or something, then it's kind of like little
Mhm.
magnets where you're drawing other people in to I don't know, to
Yeah.
kick off the second phase
That's a
of
good that yeah. Well, if you think about it, if you think about from when you're in pre-menopause, right? So
Mhm,
pre-menopause is where you're between the age of like 25-ish to about 35-ish, 36, 37, when your periods are regular,
mhm,
right? So it takes about that amount of time from puberty to pre-menopause. And then you have in that time frame, you are consumed with everybody else,
mhm,
right? So if you are a parent, you have your family during that time. If you don't have any children, you probably have work or pets or something that you are constantly having to take care of. I don't care whether you have kids, pets, just a spouse, or living on your own. You are always doing for somebody else and
yep,
very rarely for yourself,
yep,
right? And
yep,
that all has to do with the hormones too, but that gets way too in the weeds, like why the hormones do that, and you feel that need to take care of everybody, and that's all chemical as well.
yep,
And then you start to go through, and but you have friends. You have friends that are in the same boat as you. So you're all heightened like this constantly, right?
yeah, mhm,
And women, this is no secret. They fight with each other. There's fighting that goes on in these relationships. And a lot of it has to do with hormones and personalities and all things like that, right? And you typically are friends and you surround yourself with people who are going through the same things you are. So your friends are the friends of your kids who are in school, or they're your coworkers, or and then you get to perimenopause, and perimenopause comes with so many factors and so many brain factors. And I have always said this. One, I don't know how more menopausal individuals are not in bell towers with machine guns shooting everyone, and they're white boys, who come from affluent homes that are doing it. Like
mhm.
you white boys have no idea the struggles of a perimenopausal woman. Like we have the right to go up to the bell tower. You have none. Okay, I don't know where the hell you get off thinking that your problems are so horrible. Live inside a perimenopausal woman's body for an hour and you'll be up in that bell tower.
Oh yeah.
And I noticed too that a lot of um, a lot of people on this transition highway don't have a lot of friends because it's very difficult. I have found it very difficult to be friendly with some people because your emotions are so heightened all the time,
Mhm,
right?
yeah,
So you're kind of like exposed all the time. That's how I always felt. Like I'm just exposed all the time.
mhm,
Your brain is rewiring itself. So you have no idea who you are, right? You
right,
don't know during this, you're like, I am not the same person I was there. I have no idea who I am right now or how I'm supposed to get over there.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have other individuals who are going through the same exact thing. I have gone through friend groups because the heightened emotions just got in the way.
Mm.
And, you know, it just, things fell apart.
Right.
And I'm sure I'm not the only person that has gone through this.
Mm.
And when you finally get into the later part of perimenopause, into postmenopause, I think you kind of don't want that emotional turmoil all the time. It's too much.
Right.
Your hormones are not heightened anymore to be able to absorb that.
Hmm.
Again, for lack of a better term, 'cause I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know what the technical term is for absorbing emotions.
Right.
So you you were capable of absorbing those emotions before,
Hmm.
and you were able to overcome them because your body was working with the hormones and the chemicals it needed to do that.
Yeah.
Then when it starts to decrease and you have to adjust to it, the adjustment doesn't happen overnight, it happens over 10 years.
Mhm.
That's a very, very long time.
Right.
And I think that later part of it, you start to just not want to be stressed out.
Right.
I don't have the emotional I can't how many women do you hear say, I can't take it anymore.
Mm.
Like this is it. I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. I've had enough. And I think that's exactly like word for word, right? Like how many people
uh, get out of my head. I have never said those words ever. Not once, not twice, not three times, not even 12 times.
it's not on a loop in your head because it's on a loop in mine. It's like enough, enough, enough. I've had
Yeah.
enough.
No, I
But
mean, it
yeah,
really
like that.
is. I mean, it is truly words that I know if you say them and I'm sitting here going, I know if it's you, it's me, and it's 100 others.
Everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And do you want to be like I have a very small group of friends. I have you. I have like three other ones as well, right?
Yeah.
And none of you know each other, which is lovely.
Hmm.
That's the worst that I have found out that once you put more than one person in your friendship group, that's the end of it,
Yeah.
right? Because there's
Hmm.
always something that goes on.
Yep.
But I've noticed that we all are the same way. Like my one like person, right? We talk to each other maybe once every other week. But when we talk, it's for like 2 hours and we're
Right.
saying goodbye for an hour and we're planning all of our shit for the next. But it's too much, right? Every day. It's too
Oh, yeah.
much. I don't, yeah. And so, but everybody, it's not, oh, she doesn't want to talk to me. No, she can't do it either.
Right.
She's having the same thing, but no one can articulate it because we don't talk about it and we don't know that the other person is feeling that way as well.
Right.
My girlfriend, whose mother just passed away, she is completely detached from everything.
Mm.
She has detached herself from it all. And it's a way, one, to protect herself because of what her circumstances are.
Sure.
But she's at that point where I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. I
Yeah.
need a break.
Yeah.
And I think perimenopause, and it seems to be right at the like the end. So in the end for some people it could be 2 or 3 years, right? It's
Mhm.
not like the end and then you jump over the bridge and then you're there. It's such a long process.
Right.
And it's a normal part of the process. And if it is very bothersome, there are doctors that you can talk to. You can go to a therapist, a psychiatrist, a social worker, a coach. A
Hmm.
coach is not going to help you in the past, but they can help you figure out um, tricks and stuff to do moving you forward.
Right.
Like you can go to a coach and be like, I'm feeling detached. And the coach will be like, okay, well, let's do some activities that may help you
Right.
get forward. Like maybe you can join a book club, or maybe you can go to a cooking class, or join a play or do something,
Right.
and the coach will help you that way.
Yeah.
Where a therapist or a psychiatrist, a social worker, a counselor, they'll go back and they'll be like, what happened in the back that you don't feel like you want to connect
Mhm.
with somebody? Like, what is bringing that up? So
Right.
there's different professionals that you can go to depending on what you want the outcome to be. If you
Right.
want to figure out why you're being so distant from everybody, if you can't figure it out on your own, that you've been, everybody's maid for the last 30 years and you're tired of it. If I fold another article of underwear for somebody, I'm going to scream, right? Like after a while, it's just too much. If I have to cook one more hamburger, one more chicken nugget, if I
Yeah.
have to take one more person to the doctor, if I have to make sure that someone is taking their medicine 3 times a day,
Yeah.
it is a lot. We don't give people who are the caregivers for life enough credit.
Yeah.
And then when they start to need the compassion and the empathy and the guidance, we're like, get over it and be quiet
Right.
about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Hmm.
there isn't. And in these conversations, like I'm thinking of like I have a really good friend who she must be just maybe 10 years older than I am. So when we were first friends, like she started going through all of this, and I'll be honest, like I was always like when she was like, oh, I was just like, like, you know, because that's what like
Yeah.
that's
It's
how
one of
it
those things. If
was
it's not
10
happening
years
to you,
ago.
you just don't understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years ago, nobody was talking about anything and you had to suffer in silence, but she wasn't quiet about it. And, and I was just kind of like, okay, like, this was against everything that I knew anything about, which was nothing. And now I
Right.
think of her all the time and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I know I can't apologize to you because were never in my head. I'm like, but,
Right,
having
right.
those, being like, oh, Stacy, you were so like, so
Yeah.
yeah,
I
but,
remember, yeah.
it's
I
and
remember a student. The what?
well, and and it just goes back to um I think our age group right now um is really good about being open about where we are and what our challenges are because we are realizing, well, if it's me, it's got to be somebody else. Whereas like our
Right.
moms or our aunts might have been like, well, if I say
It's
something,
me and
people are going to
that's it.
think I'm nuts so crazy.
Right, right.
So, so it's good to have like you have, I'm the same way as you. I have my friend here, I have my friend here, I have my friend here. And I talk to I talk to each of them about different things. I don't always talk to you about the same thing that I talk to Renee
Right,
about, you know,
right.
and but I know that there is safety in talking to you guys because there is this level of trust that I have with you where I can go, I have something I have to say, and I'm not sure, you know, I'm not sure where it's coming from or how I'm supposed to think about this,
Right.
and, with Renee was like, oh my God, like, I was thinking the same thing recently. And and so then you're like, no way. And so
Yeah.
then I can kind of come
Exactly.
to you and kind of say, hey, listen, like there's this thing that's happening. Like, like, what do you think? And you kind of
Right.
get to size up the fact that what's happening, it's normalized because you're not
Yes.
this crazy person. And I feel, what do I want to say here? I hope that if there's um, women listening to this conversation, that if they don't have that kind of connection with somebody, that they realize that they need to find somebody, or, look at who they're talking with. And if they're not getting that kind of support, that they need to find someone whether it is, like you said, a coach, a therapist, a psychiatrist, whatever, or maybe a
Right.
family member that they can kind of inch closer towards to kind of, have that um
Yeah.
confidence in because it really makes a complete difference. a complete
It
difference.
does. It really does. Just to know that you're not out there on your own. Like you're not your own little planet,
Yeah.
circling.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
And
some people would want to feel that way. I'm not that type of person. I don't want to be like, on a lonely island. I feel that way sometimes, but then I'm kind of like, well, that's kind of ridiculous, Stacy. Like you're not special or unique. There's
right,
millions of women out there. And if you're doing it, like going through it or feeling it, somebody else out there is as well.
right.
And so,
Exactly.
yeah. So let's, bring it to the surface so that that other person out there
Absolutely. I mean,
who
there
thinks,
are definitely times where I'm like, I want to be by myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. And it could
yeah,
be, a week or two or whatever. And then I'm like, I really need to reach out and talk to someone. And then
yeah,
even reaching out and talking to someone, you're like, oh, right up until it. And then once you start talking to them, you're like, oh yeah, see, I know that I miss this. I
yeah,
do need to really talk to them.
yes,
And just trying to figure out where that comes from. It doesn't have to be like this trauma that happened.
mm,
It
yeah,
it could be something just as simple as you're having a hormone depletion
yeah,
and your brain is readjusting, and this is how it's resting. Your
right,
brain, in one of the articles that I read, it said that the menopausal individual will needs a rest,
hmm,
needs the silence to rest. The brain needs to rest. It's been very busy
yeah,
for 50 years and
yeah,
it may need just silence.
yeah.
So it's not a horrible thing. It's not the end of the world. Now, whether it goes back to normal or not, I cannot talk to that because I'm in the
We're
middle of
not
it.
there
So if I
yet.
come out of it, and I went on HRT too. So I have HRT running through me and I am still like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I
Isn't
just
it
don't have the
hilarious?
energy.
When we started this, I was on HRT and you weren't, and now you're on it, and I stopped mine. And
Right, right.
yeah, so it's interesting how, and of course, yeah, I mean, no, it's just,
Well, that's the thing too about perimenopause and menopause is that it's not a one size fits all, and it's not you're going to start it and then you're going to end it on the same path.
right,
It's going to
right,
change.
yeah,
When we first started talking, when I was getting certified and you were one of my case studies, um, you needed it at that time.
hmm, I
You
really
were in
did.
a situation where you needed it. Your body was having symptoms you could not control.
Yeah.
And I was able to control mine at the time, knowing damn well it wasn't going to last. Like I knew I was like, at some point, I'm like, I'm just, going to hold out as long as I possibly can. Although,
Yeah, of
I don't know
course.
why we hold out. I think we hold out because we want to see if we can do it on our own, which is
Of course.
ridiculous. If
Of
you need
course.
it, take it. If you are diabetic, we wouldn't be like, let's see if you can fix this on your own. I mean, yes, you do. Actually, that's a really bad example.
I know.
Yours is
I was just
a
like,
real
diet, exercise.
yeah, no, that's not a good one. But like,
Well, no,
so, but yeah, I
no,
mean, if you needed to take something, if you had the flu, we would give you something to help you
right,
feel better,
right,
right?
right. Yes, of
So
course.
what if you needed glasses, you would wear glasses. You wouldn't walk around without being able to see. If you needed a hearing aid, you would put on a hearing aid. You're not going to walk around with not being able to hear. I know people have the, issues
Um,
with it because of their vanity. But when it gets
yeah,
really bad, you're going to use it. You're not going to let yourself go deaf or
right,
blind. Okay. You
right,
don't want to live deaf or blind. So go get your glasses and your hearing aids if you need them.
right.
But with the HRT, why are we under the impression that it's like women going through childbirth and like no medicine? I'm like, I wouldn't say that until you're actually in labor because how you feel right now and how you feel in labor, two totally different beings. You're not even going to feel human while you're in labor. So
Yeah,
don't say no medication until you're there
right.
because you're going to want that medication. You know, a very, very, very strong women can do it without medication. But I am here to tell you
Why?
99.9% of them take it because
Yeah,
it is painful. It is
yeah.
painful. You would not go to the dentist and then say, I need to extract a tooth. And you're like, all right, I'm going to breathe through this. You would not do that.
But
Would you?
I do know people who refuse Novocaine. Like,
Really?
yeah, yes.
Well, then you know
And
what? Then they deserve to go through a horrible perimenopause. Why?
Well, I mean,
Why
yeah,
would you do that?
it's,
Seriously.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm taking a Tylenol with a codeine when I have a migraine. I'm taking medication. I don't want to be in any kind of pain,
Mm,
right? So
right,
when people are going through menopause transition and they are really, really struggling, psychologically, physically, and the doctor, if it's an educated doctor, says, why don't we try? Start
right,
you on a very low dose.
right.
You want the lowest dose for, and you want to always be monitored. Like,
Yeah.
don't
Well,
order it online. Don't get it from your friend. Go to the doctor, have the doctor monitor you while you're on it. There are definitely people who should not be taking it, so you need to find out if you're one of those people or not. But it's like with everything else, it's not a blanket. It's not going to
right,
cause cancer in everybody. It's not going to be this horrible thing that a lot of doctors will tell you who are not educated on the subject.
right.
But on the flip side of that coin, it can cause things.
Yeah,
It can work against what you're trying to do. So you want to be conscious of that when you are researching it. And you should research it. You shouldn't just rely on your doctor to say, hey, this is what you should do. You should say, okay, I'm going to take this information. I'm going to go and I'm going to research it and see if it
right,
really is something that I want to do.
right,
Women have been disadvantaged in the medical field, and we are given medication without it being explained to us. Here, little girl, take your medicine, be a good little girl, go away, come back in a month, and let's take a look and see what's going on
mm,
you know.
yeah,
And so take the HRT if you have to. Try with the supplements if that's the route you want to go. Try with nutrition and exercise if that's really where you want to start all of this. Is you want to start with a baseline of exercise, good nutrition, healthy sleep habits, hygiene, like all the basics, all the
right.
basic things you learned in kindergarten,
Yeah, yeah,
how to be potty trained to go to kindergarten. So, you want all the basics. And then start adding to that. So
right,
if you notice that your sleep's a little off, add a little bit of maybe melatonin, right?
right,
You can buy that at the food. See if that helps. And see if you start to feel a little bit better.
right,
Maybe add some fruits and vegetables. Don't do it all at once, just one thing at a time, just to
right.
see.
Yeah,
And then if you get to the point where nothing is working, you're suffering, your family life is suffering, everybody hates you, you can't leave the house without crying, no one's inviting you to parties anymore, then maybe have the conversation about some HRT. Like maybe let's see if maybe we need to
yeah,
step it up a little bit and get some chemicals in there, you know?
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, so if the emotional detachment really starts to bother you, there are therapies that it's
yeah.
not it's not the end of the world. There are
And
ways to fix it.
talk to somebody. If nothing else, ask one of your friends or say,
Talk
I'm
therapy is
having a
really the
bad
best.
week or I don't feel myself this week. You know, have you ever had this? Trust me, that one conversation could change everything.
Yeah, and if you're talking to a friend, be upfront with them and
Mhm.
say, I'm having a really hard time. Like, don't just get on the phone and have them expect that they know you're having a hard time.
Right,
They may be having a hard time and not listening to you.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
we're very lucky in the fact that we're both coaches. So
Mhm.
we are trained to listen and to hear things that other people are not hearing. And really to listen to the other person. Like other people don't have that. Like I know with other people, like they're not listening to what I'm saying. So I don't go into depth with them because they're only catching every other word of what I'm saying because they're trying to think of the response
Yeah.
to what I'm saying to them. But
Right.
like, so when we're talking with each other, we're listening to one another, which is very different than somebody who's not trained to listen to them.
Right.
So there is that element as well.
Hmm.
But that's why we're able to, if like one of our brains goes off, like this is what you were talking about. So I was listening to you.
Yeah. Which is nice,
Which
isn't
is,
it?
yeah. Uh-huh.
Just, yeah, and someone just be like, yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I don't know. What were you just talking
yeah.
about? My mother and I do that all the time. She'll be like, "What was I saying?" I'm like, "I have no idea." I was not listening. Some people you can just turn it off.
Yeah,
You just
it's true.
turn that off. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I've heard this voice my whole life.
Well, thanks for that,
Well,
Michelle. It was really interesting, and I'm glad that I like the fact that you and I can have these um I guess like almost like a follow-up conversation for a for a private conversation that we're having that actually turns out to be beneficial for
yeah,
everybody else because then we get to learn more about what we were just talking about, making ourselves feel better, but then also putting it out there and helping everybody else too.
yeah, absolutely. If this could help one person that feels like they're isolated, that you're not alone. And
Yeah.
of course, if you are feeling isolated, if you are alone, if you do want to talk to somebody, our business cards are up at the end
Yep.
of this video, and you can also visit us on our websites and our Facebook pages and all of
Yep.
that, and all that information is on there too. So
Yep.
feel free to come on over. I mean, I think we have maybe 12 to 15 people who have been watching. So hello to our 12 or 15 people who are watching.
Gracias for your attention and interest.
When we're big and famous, we'll go back onto these videos. We'll see who those people were that have been following us,
Yeah.
and we'll give them subscriptions to our loyal followers from the very beginning.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they'll love that.
What?
I'm sure they'll love that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Now I get to listen to them for the rest of my life for free. Excellent.
Yay. Lucky you.
I wonder if too, maybe at some point we do a just an audio cast because a lot of people, well, actually we don't need to be recording anymore, but a lot of people like to listen to podcasts,
Hmm.
like when they're walking or doing whatever they're doing. So maybe we start instead of, I wonder if maybe we videotape it and transfer it over to an audio. So we have both.
Can you see the
For
captions right now?
now.
Okay. Because I'm playing around with settings and I was going to turn off the recording, but I just saw that as we're
Oh, it's
talking,
doing.
it's doing like closed caption. So
Oh, that's cool because then people can watch it in different languages too.
yeah, so okay. I don't know if this is gonna
I think there is something on Zoom because we're on Zoom, right? Yeah. So
yeah,
there's something on Zoom that you can always put the closed captioning on. Like even during a meeting, you can put it on.
yeah,
So I
okay.
wonder if the video, if people were watching. Oh yeah, if people are watching the video, they can put the closed caption on.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah,
just
yeah,
happened to see that when I was gonna try and stop recording and I was just like, oh my God, look. Okay, so anyway,
yeah.
pause, stop recording, stop recording.